Hey, everybody. Happy Sunday to you. Getting ready to record Mike in the Midwest, episode 225. Let's do it. All right, here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 225 of Mike in the Midwest, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast, which you can find wherever you find podcasts. You know that because you're a patron, which means you've been listening to our show for a minute or two. And for that, I appreciate you so very much. Thank you for supporting our show on Patreon. We could not do this show without your support. So, again, thank you so very much for that. It means a lot. Our hosting over on StreamYard, where we do all the video support and make it so that you can watch us live in the 5 locations: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. They've upped our costs in the new year as we had to renew. And because of that, because of your support, we're able to keep going. And that's how we record our shows. So thank you so much for allowing us to keep doing the show. We couldn't do it without you. I truly, truly mean that. So thank you. Your $5 a month goes a long way. I know $5 you might not think, oh, $5 isn't much. It's like a cup of coffee a month. But when we do that collectively, it keeps us on the air. So please keep supporting the show. It means a lot. I hope you enjoy these shows every week. I try to make them worth your while. I know they're not much, but maybe they keep you company on a walk every week. I don't know. They're just me shooting the breeze with you, telling stories, and but hopefully it's a friend in your ear for 30, 40 minutes. And the goal is that it brings up something from your past, maybe a story of your grandma, your grandpa, a store that you used to go to at your mall, maybe up in Wisconsin or out in Idaho or down in Texas. I don't know. It's just something to keep you company to pass the time and just to say thank you for being a friend of our show and for being a friend with me. I appreciate it because you guys know I love doing podcasts. I've got to do this now. If you continue, if you think about the podcast, The Big Show, over 2,600 episodes over there, over 200 episodes here. I have been blessed to get to do 2,800 episodes of podcasts. Who would have thought? When you have a hobby or something you get to do for 2,800 times, you are absolutely a lucky person. You're blessed. So thank you for letting me do this and hope you're having a great weekend. Uh, when you're a huge football fan like I am with the Missouri Tigers, you kind of live and die with your football team. Took a tough L yesterday. I thought we were going to win it. We were winning with 1 minute to go. Miraculous comeback. Our quarterback was playing with a bad sprained ankle. Didn't think he was going to play all week. Had a bad sprained ankle. He had a broken wrist in his throwing hand, yet he decided to play. I did a whole episode about him. Went to the hospital in the middle of a game about a month ago, came back and played to finish the game. Broken wrist now and decided to play because he's only got a couple games left. Came back, played the whole game. Brought us back from the brink of loss to winning with less than a minute left of the game. And then we ended up losing. South Carolina marched down the field and scored with less than 30 seconds left. Give us an L. But I'm not going to let that ruin my vibe the rest of the week. This is the greatest time of the year. And if you tuned in tonight to the live call-in show, you will be able to see that I've done something that I usually don't do here in the podcast studios. I'm very traditional. I'm very, I don't do this, but the Christmas tree is up in the Be Our Guest podcast studios. It's here. It's my tree that I got as a gift from my mother-in-law a few years ago. I wanted an old Christmas tree for the Be Our Guest podcast studios. And she got this for me for my birthday. My mother-in-law's the bomb. And I get to decorate this one however I like. So of course it looks kind of 50s and 60s. It's got the old tinsel star up top. It's got tinsel, the that's not tinsel, but it's got the garland on it. It's got the obnoxious kind of flashing colored lights from that's kind of like a nod to the 80s. and it's got the bubble lights, which I love. That was my birthday present 2 years ago from my mother-in-law. See, it works out perfect when your birthday's right around Thanksgiving. You can get stuff for Christmas for your birthday to decorate a Christmas tree. Like another year, my mother-in-law got me a train set, like a little train set to put under the tree from Menards. And so I have that. So it's really nice. My mother-in-law hooks me up. So and father-in-law, he's in on it too, but she does all the shopping. So I give her all the credit. But now I have the Christmas tree up here in the studios. And also, you'll notice as you tune in here over the next couple of weeks, I have the Charlie Brown Christmas tree sitting on top of my Coke Zero mini fridge, which you always see over my shoulder. So I'm never an arm's length away from a Coke Zero. The Charlie Brown Christmas tree, which was always about classroom, because I always told my kids, we're all kind of a Charlie Brown Christmas tree, right? We just need a little love. We sometimes we're struggling, sometimes we're bent, and sometimes we don't look like we're the strongest tree in the forest, but we just need a little love, and we can make it. We can be that shining tree at the end of the story. We just need that blanket and somebody to believe in us. I always told my kids that when I brought out the Charlie Brown Christmas tree and sat it on my desk or sat it in the front of the classroom right after Thanksgiving when I taught as a teacher, and they'd always make fun of it. I say, you know what? This tree is amazing. It's got magical powers. And so real quick, let me just tell, because this is just a storytelling show anyway. So one of the things I did as a teacher, and I did this was like my thing. This was Mr. Rallman's thing, is I marked the year every single year that I taught, because I taught fifth grade, I taught sixth grade, and I taught gifted. When I taught gifted, I taught fourth, fifth, and sixth graders. Every year before break, or before like we would leave for that holiday, I always showed my kids the Charlie Brown Halloween special. Either that was usually the day of Halloween. We'd usually have, because I'm old, right? We'd have a Halloween party. So the day of the Halloween party, right before, because it's only like 25 minutes long, we'd always watch The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. And then the day before we go on Thanksgiving break, we'd always watch the Thanksgiving Charlie Brown episode, and now I would combine that one with, there's one that's actually more educational. It talks about them coming over on the Mayflower and all that stuff. It's actually got a lot of good history in it, because the other one about how they just pop the popcorn and Snoopy's dishing out the toast and stuff like that, and they have the card table and they're in the backyard and all that stuff. That's okay. And they go to the condo at the end. It's okay. It's part of America. So we always watch that one, but I always combine that with I think it's called the Mayflower or something. We'd always watch that one too. And then of course we could never leave for Christmas break until we watched Charlie Brown Christmas. And so every year, I taught for 17 years. That was Mr. Rallman's thing. And I looped one year with my favorite class. I taught them for fifth grade, and then I moved back up to sixth grade, and I kept the exact same class, my favorite class ever. And they're like, Mr. Rallman, you going to make us watch this again? I'm like, absolutely, we're going to watch. They're like, yes, you're going to make it, because I loved it. Like they're like, and the funny thing is that Charlie Brown wasn't really popular even back then. And this was like the late 2000s. Charlie Brown is like a thing of the like 60s, 70s, 80s. But these kids engaged with it. And I loved it, right? Because Charlie Brown was kind of a thing of my childhood. But I always sold it as a way. I tried to make it cool to my kids, to tell them that it was a part of my childhood, but it's awesome, right? Snoopy is like a cool dog. Snoopy is, and I tried to explain, like they sold him as a kid like Joe Cool. He was a cool dog. He was a cool cat. And Charlie Brown's like this lovable loser, and how everybody played a role within the Peanuts gang. I actually, I do like mini lessons on the Peanuts. When I taught, of course I had to teach the curriculum. I taught science. I taught social studies. I taught math. I taught them how to, do prime factorization and how to do long division and how to, polynomials and all this stuff. We had to do all that, and we did all that stuff. But in between, if I got all that stuff done, my kids got a lot of pop culture kind of lessons in sixth grade. I taught them about the Peanuts. Like Charlie Brown, lovable loser, but played a role, and so did Peppermint Patty, and so did Lucy, and so did Schroeder. And they all kind of, they would like assign roles to each other within my classroom. Like this kid's Schroeder, this kid's Lucy, this kid's Sally, this kid's Linus, and I just kind of stood back, until I got, unless it got mean, because they were, my kids were like a family. I really, when I taught, and I'm really speaking to that fifth, sixth grade class that I had for 2 years, because I mean, I went to some of their weddings when they got older. Like this class was special to me. And they really did care about each other. And a lot of them, I'm still friends with them on Facebook. They still do. Like they still hang out as adults. They have kids now, and the kids, like they have play dates for their kids. And it's really cool to see how social media now I get to see them interact with each other. And it was really cool. They were really good to each other. And that's why I like that group of kids. They were nice to each other. And the adults, the parents, like really took care of each other too. And they took care of me because I was a young teacher. I didn't really know what was going on. I just really wanted to be a good teacher. I wasn't the best teacher, but I tried really hard every day. And the parents gave me leeway to become a good teacher in those years, because I sure didn't know exactly what was going on, but I tried hard every day. I did. I promise. I wanted the best for their kids. But you know, teaching's a hard profession. I know we have a lot of teachers in our audience, and it's with any other profession, whether you're a teacher, a doctor, probably it'd be scary if you're, doctor would be a little bit scarier, but whatever job you do, a computer programmer, a nurse, whatever role you play, like you don't know what you're doing when you first go into the profession, right? Because experience is the best teacher. And I went through college and took all the classes and got good grades. But man, then they slam you into a sixth grade class, and here you are. You got 27 kids staring you in the face in September, August, and here you go. Let's roll. And now you're in charge. And all of a sudden, it's like, where's my cooperating teacher? And you don't have one. I had a mentor next door, but she had 27 kids and was doing her thing too at the same time. So I had to figure this stuff out quick. Luckily, I had Pam next door, but she had 27 kids of her own. She was doing her thing, and she was only a year into teaching at the same time. But it all works out, right? Life works out, and it gives you memories. But getting back to the Charlie Brown thing, that's why I love mementos like this. And I think mementos are special. This show is so random. I hope I don't know if you like this show or hate this show, because it is just a tangent. It's one big tangent. But this little Christmas tree, this little Charlie Brown Christmas tree that'll be sitting on top of my mini fridge for the next 6 weeks or so, it brings me joy, because it takes me back to when I taught sixth grade, and I got to tell those stories with my kids, because Charlie Brown was nothing to them, but then it became something to them. And my hope is too, I doubt this. I doubt this. And there's no way to know, but I wonder if any of my kids, and I still call them my kids, these kids are 30 now. So one of those students that was in that class, Alicia, one of my favorite students of all time, she's in the Air Force, she flies the plane that refuels the jets. So she flies the big old bird that refuels other planes that don't have to land. That's pretty cool, right? When one of your students does that, so proud of her. She just posted on Facebook last week that it was her 8th wedding anniversary. Now I was at her wedding, and I was at her she invited me to her graduation from St. Louis University when she graduated with her aeronautical degree. I mean, I've been at all these things because we went to church together and stuff like that. So to see that, like, she's been married 8 years, and like these remarkable things, but she was in my 5th grade class. And it's just special. But I wonder, the point is, I wonder if any of these adults now, and I still call them my kids, but these adults, I wonder if any of them will show their kids Charlie Brown Thanksgiving in a couple, next week, or when Christmas comes around, if they'll show their kids or their families, if they'll show them Charlie Brown Christmas when it comes around. I hope that'd be my hope. But I'm an old man, maybe not. Maybe that ship has sailed, but I would hope that tradition would continue. I don't know. I just think it's really special. The music in especially in Charlie Brown Christmas, that Dave Brubeck quartet music. I mean, like of that Lucy skating music at the beginning. It's timeless. There's nothing that brings me more joy than that soundtrack from Charlie Brown Christmas. It really does. I mean, it sets the tone of Christmas time for me. I don't know about you guys. And again, this is all about the feedback, so let me know. But do you guys remember? This was just my classroom. This was room 135 at Wedgwood Elementary in Florissant, Missouri, for a period of 10 years. Because then I went to the Gifted Center and did my thing there. But did it change? Did you have moments like this in your elementary school where you grew up that still stick with you? Did a teacher leave an impression on you where because you watched something or you did something in your elementary school that you are now, it's now a part of your life? It's a tradition that you passed on to your kids. I'd love to hear that. I would love to hear that. So let me know. That'd be very cool. I love stuff like that. Anyway, that's what's going on around here. The tree is up here in the office. Mallory needed gas money, and I helped her with gas money, and she is very much more aesthetic than her old man. So the tree got put up, and I gave her gas money. So that's how you get things done around here in BOGP land. And I found the ceramic, and I bought this one at Target, I think, this white ceramic Christmas tree. Now, this one is not original. My grandma had one just like that. It was green, and I have another one that's green that goes upstairs in the living room. But my grandma had one just like that, and I loved it. So those ceramic Christmas trees bring me so much joy. But I got that one at Target and for the studio here. And it just, when I see those things, it just brings me right back to being like 7 years old at grandma's house. I love those things. I don't know if you guys love those little ceramic Christmas trees with the little light up, plastic lights. Just makes me happy. I love these little things. Like just taking them out. Like right now I have, the lights are on and stuff, but it's light outside. But I'll be honest, I can't wait till tonight's Call live show because it's going to be dark. And like to have the glow of the Christmas lights here in the studio, I'm pumped. I can't wait for that. I love this kind of stuff. So that's where we are right now. Let's get to I don't want to go too long because we have so many shows, and I talk your guys' ear off constantly all week, so I don't want to do that. But let's see what we got the feedback from last week. Last week we talked about something that was just, it was on my mind, but I could not narrow it down all week when I thought about the topic. And it was to go back. If you could go back to 3 days, just 3 days from the past, what 3 days would you revisit if you could go back for like a 6-hour window and just relive those days to see what it was like? What was that experience like? I had a hard time deciding. And it would be very fluid because you might one day go back, you decide these are the 3 days. And then, if you decided that a week later, it could be 3 totally different days. Here's what Trisha said up in Wisconsin. You basically painted a scene from a Badger hockey game. The anxiety as a fan during come from ahead losses, the insanity of exiting the parking garage, and the hated rival chants. No offense, Minnesota, but spelling your state name isn't a clever chant. Bragging rights, UW-Madison school song shares a tie to a Disney animated film, Robin Hood. It's the same song when the chicken is barreling through King John's goons. Sadly, Thanksgiving is a letdown. My parents insist on hosting, but can't cook. It's not worth the battle to try to host, so I drown the turkey in gravy to rehydrate it and push my food around my plate. Then I go home and pour myself a bowl of limited edition sugar cookie cinnamon toast crunch, if that counts as a side. Well, that's disappointing, Trisha. I will say Thanksgiving is my favorite meal of the year, and Pam cooks it up. It is so good. And your family's always welcome here. I know you got to go to your family, but anybody is always welcome at the Rallman house. I'm serious. If you ever need a place on Thanksgiving, let me know. Door always open here. I promise you, if you're a patron here and you're a member of our family, my door is always open to you. If you're having a hard year, you need to come on in, just shoot me an email. Table, we'll set you a place. Promise you that. Trish continues in response to the 3 magical days. Number one, the time leading up to and including watching Magic Kingdom fireworks for the first time and overhearing her whisper to herself, best day ever. Oh my gosh. I feel that. Number two, last year when I went to Disney with my brother at Magic Kingdom rope drop, we were the first people at the Tomorrowland rope waiting to ride Space Mountain. My grandparents, oh, that was number two. Number three, my grandparents' farmhouse on Christmas Day, opening gifts, playing pool near the basement fire, and my grandma's cooking. Plus, as a kid, not a care in the world. There's something to be said about that, right? When you're a kid, you just it's that innocence. You don't have a care in the world. And I think that is why a lot of times for me, the nostalgia of all this stuff is going back to those times and places where you're not worried about everything, and I'm not, for the most part, compared to what I see on social media and everything and on the news. I think I have 99% less worries than most people. I'm very optimistic and I just kind of go with the flow. I don't let things get me down. But, I'm also not, I don't have the same amount of worries as I did when I was 7 years old. Of course, I have responsibilities. I worry about how Paige is going to do. I worry about Mallory, and I worry about what school she's going to select. And I worry about how we're going to pay for college. And I worry about the mortgage. And I worry, you have to be an adult and worry about those things. When you're 7 years old, you just worry about what Atari game you're going to play next, or, is your buddy going to come over so you can go ride bikes? What a life. How great was that? You just go over to grandma's and grandma's feeding you cookies, and you don't worry about even gaining weight. I remember when I'm not kidding, when I was like 12, I think I ate like the entire cookie tin one time. I don't ever remember like gaining weight. I was a skinny, rail little boy, and I am not kidding. One time I probably ate, that cookie tin, I had to have held at least 30 cookies. And I bet you I ate 20 of them. I ate almost the whole cookie tin, and it was a big cookie tin. I guess we didn't gain weight back then because we were always playing outside. It was remarkable. I mean, we didn't care. We just, it was, I don't know how that worked back then. Who knows? And Len out in Maryland says, my 3 days I would like to go back to and experience again are number one, the day Jen and I entered the Magic Kingdom on our honeymoon trip. Very good. Number two, any day at my grandfather's drive-in restaurant eating his famous pizza burger. They were amazing. Oh my gosh. Sign me up. First of all, a drive-in restaurant and a pizza burger. Score. I want to go with you. Len is such a good, Len and Jen. I got to hang out with these guys, and that sounds amazing. I would love to go back with you guys. And number three, the day of my freshman year at MSU, when I first heard the full force of the Spartan marching band brass. It was also the first time I ever heard an Earth, Wind, and Fire song. They were playing Fantasy. I fell instantly in love with both the MSU marching band and Earth, Wind, and Fire. Man, Earth, Wind, and Fire rocks. And the Spartans aren't so bad either. Thank you so much, Len. Oh my gosh. You and Trisha always come through with the feedback, and I can't tell you how happy that makes me. If you have feedback for this show or any other show, please go to patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. I forgot my train of thought there, and leave your feedback for next week, and we'll get it right here on the show. All right, today I was feeling nostalgic again this week because we were putting up the tree, and when you put up the tree, you pull out the ornaments, you say, oh my gosh. Like, for example, one of the trees that I have, or one of the ornaments I have on the tree right back there, when you kind of peek it out over my shoulder here in the next few weeks, is an ornament I got. It was an annual pass holder exclusive, and it's from the last season of the Osborne Lights. You could get this ornament You had to be a pass holder, and it was from the Osborne Lights last year, and it's right there on the tree. And I love that because it reminds me. I've also have one from the Illuminations last year of Illuminations to put on my Christmas tree, and it just takes you back to like, oh man, I remember so many times standing in the middle of the streets of New York with the Osborne Lights playing, and it was just overwhelming. And they play Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and those lights would be going crazy, and you could actually just lay down in the street and watch them just go crazy, and it was just amazing. And I remember running through there during Wine and Dine with friends, and the lights were going nuts. You had the angels going across you, and it said "Peace on Earth." It's all about memories, right? So today I thought, I just want to remember a few things, hear this for a couple times, maybe spark your memory about some things. And then I went over to the Discord, to the Be Our Guest Podcast Clubhouse, and we had a thread going earlier this week, and it was weird. I don't know how this got started, but somebody was talking about zingers. Do you guys know what zingers are? If you weren't in the clubhouse, hang on, let me take a drink here. So somebody was talking about zingers. Zingers are kind of like cupcakes, but they're like rectangular prisms. Now, I believe zingers were also advertised during the Charlie Brown Halloween special, Great Pumpkin, back in the day. I think they were now. I'm not an expert on this, but I think this is true. They were originally sold by Dolly Madison Bakeries, I think. Now, I'm not a historian here, but I think this is true. And so they're like a little bakery, a little cake, kind of like a cupcake, but rectangular, like a prism. And they were so good. So now I used to eat these things all the time when I was a kid. And I'll tell you my story of zingers. We didn't have them really where I lived. I grew up in Florissant, Missouri. Okay. So in North St. Louis County, a little bit north of downtown St. Louis. However, my great grandparents lived in Alton, Illinois, which was across the river in Illinois, about 15 miles, east of the river. And so that was my mom's grandparents. So my grandma would take us over there to see her parents, which was my great grandparents, and my great grandma, especially my great grandpa, would drive me to this Dolly Madison day old store. We called it the day old bread store, but it was the Dolly Madison bakery. And it was right next to this place where every year we play a baseball tournament once a year called the Godfrey Ballpark. But we'd go there and we'd get zingers. The only thing we got there were zingers. My grandpa Finney, his name was Grandpa, his last name was Fenwick, but everybody just called him Finney. That was his nickname. He was Finney. But Grandpa Fenwick, but everybody called him Finney. So I go there with Grandpa Finney, and the only thing we get a box of zingers, like a dozen of them in a box. And we would just destroy these zingers. Now, my grandpa was like really active. I remember when I was maybe 7 or 8, he'd ride my bike still, and he was like 89, 88. I remember because my grandma went crazy. She saw him riding my bike at one of my birthday parties. I was like 7 or 8, and she yelled at him like, "Dad, get off that bike." It was my grandma. "Get off that bike. You're going to kill yourself." But he was like having a good old time. He was really active up until he didn't die until he was like 96. And he's just crazy old man. But anyway, that's the first time. But I mean, he'd always send me home with a bunch of zingers. That was like his thing. He'd like try to spoil his great grandkid. And I love zingers because we didn't have them in the St. Louis stores. I don't think what we had were like Hostess cupcakes and ding dongs and stuff like that, which were good. Don't get me wrong. I always got ding dongs and cupcakes, but zingers were the jam. So we always had zingers. Yeah. So anyway, my great grandpa and I would always, that was our thing. That was like our thing. We'd always eat zingers together and watch TV at his house. Anyway, that got me thinking about some things that we don't have anymore that I used to love. Okay. So one of those things was we had that place, we had Dolly Madison, like little stores, but also around where I lived in North St. Louis County, we had these places that were called the day old bread stores. Now, I don't know if you guys had these where you lived. They were called Hostess stores. It wasn't Dolly Madison stores. They were owned by Hostess, the bread company, the bakery. And they were what they did was there was like an outlet. There was one right by the skating rink I ran called Spinning Wheels. It was right up the street. And what they did, they would sell like bread, cupcakes. Somebody posted those pies in the clubhouse this past week. Those apple pies and blueberry pies and all those things that were so good. Um, but you could go in there and they would sell the stuff that it wasn't expired, but it wasn't new. It was like getting close to being expired, and you could buy this stuff at a deep discount. So my other grandma on the other side of the family would always shop at the day old hostess store, the day old bread store, she'd call it. Because you go in there and you get everything like 75% off. But the thing is, you had to eat it pretty quickly because it was going to expire like tomorrow. But man, you got good deals on this stuff. And I just remember because you'd have to go there a lot because again, this stuff didn't have a shelf life. It was getting ready to expire. But we had like 2 or 3 of those places just in our town of Florissant. I don't know if you guys had these places, but it was called the Hostess Outlet. And I know we had 2 or 3 of them in Florissant because I know I can see them dead in my face like right now in my brain. So we go there and like that. I just remember like you get cupcakes. They had all the sweets, and it was awesome. And here's another place I was thinking of along this line. And I don't know if you had these in your town either, but this was wild that we had this. And I was trying to explain this to Mallory. She thinks I'm crazy. At the mall, okay, now this is wild in itself. At our shopping mall that I grew up, I told you about Jamestown Malls, the shopping mall I grew up at. It's been demolished at this point. But we had a Walgreens inside the shopping mall. Now, that sounds kind of crazy in itself. But adjacent to the Walgreens, there was what was called a Wags. Now, do you know what the Wags was? Listen to this. Wags was a sit-down restaurant that was owned by Walgreens. Have you ever heard of that? It was crazy. So we had Walgreens, and then right next door to Walgreens, you could go and sit down and have a meal at Wags, Wags. So it was a sit-down restaurant owned by Walgreens, the drugstore. And we ate there more than once. I can't remember what I had there, if it was any good, but it was right there in the mall. And you ate at Wags. I don't remember much about it, but I don't know if you ever had heard of a Wags or if you've ever eaten at a Wags. But I know Walgreens is like a big company. They're based out of Chicago. And a lot of you guys live in the Midwest or around here. So maybe you have that memory. And it's stuck around forever. I mean, the Wags was around like in our mall for God, at least a good 10, 15 years that I could remember. So it wasn't like it was just there for a year. So somebody has to have the memory of a Wags. It couldn't have just been a St. Louis thing, I don't think. But I mean, like when I tell people about this, they think I'm like I'm totally, you know, crazy. So let me know. Did you guys ever hear or experience a Wags? Here's another place that I haven't thought about for years until I typed in the title of this show on the lower third. When I was in middle school and high school, when it came time for Christmas, and you had to get gifts for grandma and grandpa, or even mom and dad, and you went to the mall. It's so dumb. One of the stores I would always go to that came in clutch, like if you had to get something for grandma and grandpa, the title of the show is Remember These Things. Do you remember the store that was called Things Remembered? I don't know if you had this in your mall, but I bet you did because I think it was a huge chain. You would go into the store and they had all kinds of like gold stuff that you could get personalized, like little anniversary clocks or keychains or like a pin, you write with, or an alarm clock. They had all kinds of stuff, and it wouldn't be super expensive. You could get stuff for like $30, $40, $50. And what you would do is you would go in there and decide what you wanted to get put on it. Love you, grandma and grandpa, or, Merry Christmas, 1986 or whatever. And then, they'd write it on a piece of paper, and then you could just go do all your shopping in the rest of the mall and then come back in 2 hours and pick it up, and boom, you were set. But that I haven't thought about that store in forever. And then when I typed in the lower third for today's show, I thought, oh my gosh, things remembered. That store was crazy. And then this got me thinking about, I don't know how this turned into a mall episode, but because, it is coming to be Christmas time and that people shopped at the mall. I preferred, and I want to get on this theory. Now, there's not many malls left, but every mall that you go to has a food court. Back in the day, our shopping mall didn't have a food court. Like all the food places were just scattered around the mall in various places. Like the A&W, we had an A&W root beer, and it was across the way from the Wags. So we had a Wags that was, adjacent to the Walgreens, and across the way was an A&W where you could sit. Obviously it had sit down play. It was pretty big. You had a lot of tables. You could sit down in there and eat and have your, root beer float, hot dog, corn dog, tater tots. I can't remember what it had, but I mean, it was a pretty big place, but it wasn't a food court. Like wherever you walked around, you'd have Prince Plus. That's another place. You'd go buy your posters for your wall, Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco, Ferrari, whatever you needed, whoever the pretty girl was of the day, whatever you needed, boom, black light pictures, all there at Prince Plus. That was the jam. Waterbed store right there. I'm trying to think what was next. 579 was a store. Then you had the 1 hour photography joint. You had KB Toy. I'm going right down the line because I can picture it because I worked right by there. KC Sports, all right there, right? But then, it was magical. But in the middle, you had like the water fountains, and it smelled like chlorine. Man, those were the days. Those were the days. But I mean, like when you look back at these things, so many of them just wouldn't make sense today. But I was thinking about that, like Wags. We just had a story on the news, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that Walgreens itself, the pharmacy, right? The big store that's on every corner. I don't know where you live, but like where I live, there's a Walgreens just about at every corner in St. Louis. There's either a Walgreens or a CVS just about at every intersection that I come to. But there's certainly not a Wags. If I told somebody that Walgreens actually had a sit down restaurant adjacent to it, they'd think I had three heads, but I'm telling you, they did. It was in a shopping mall. So I just wondered if you had any of these kind of recollections. Do you remember Prince Plus? Do you remember Wags? Do you remember your shopping mall not having a food court, but like everything was scattered? And did you like it better like that back in the day? Do you remember things remembered, or did you get anything like that? Because that was kind of my clutch thing. Like if I couldn't think of a good, and I'm terrible at giving gifts, but when I was, a high school kid and I had to get something for grandma and grandpa, oh man, I don't know if they're probably lying to me because they were just good people. But when I would give them something that was personalized to grandma and grandpa from Mike, whether it was, I can't remember what I got them, but I'd personalize it, love you, grandma and grandpa, love Mike. And they always made a big deal that they loved it because it was special to them, a anniversary clock or something. And it couldn't have been very nice because it was only like $50 with the engraving included. But it was something that I always tried to go to. So give me your feedback on this topic and give me some of the things that you remember. Like, does this stir up any ideas in your head of things that you remember from your childhood that are gone? One of the other things too, we were at the football game the other day. Last thing, there was a place we had a department store in St. Louis called Venture. It was like Target, but it was a little bit cheaper. It was called Venture. It was just like Target, but it was cheaper, called Venture. Now, in the parking lot of our Venture was a store called Colonel Days. Colonel Days only sold jeans. It was like a jeans store, and it was like a little store in the parking lot of Venture. And for some reason, when we went back to school, everybody had to go get jeans when I was a kid. Yet when you went back to school, it was still 100 degrees in St. Louis. I don't get that either. But we had a place called Colonel Days. We hadn't talked about Colonel Days in 30 years, but somebody brought that up the other night. So it kind of made me think about this too. Anyway, give me your thoughts. Let's talk about it. And let's reconvene next Sunday. We'll be getting ready for Thanksgiving here in the States. But until then, I appreciate you guys. We'll get together tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central for the live call-in show. And I hope you can join us. But if not, I hope you have a great week. So until we get back together again, you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.